タイミングこの角度でドンピシャ
This is not realistic. In fact, which one of these 4 anime do you think looks the most realistic? Because the answer is actually this one. This right here is the most realistic sports anime of all time. And you might think I'm crazy for saying that because a massive strength of sports anime is it doesn't even need crazy superpowers besides this, nor does it need a great villain besides him. So it's no surprise that the most popular sports anime are also the most realistic. But then why is this one of the highest rated shows of the last decade? Well, I'm going to show you not only why Inazuma 11 is better than shows like Haikyuu and Blue Lock, but it's also way more realistic. But before that, we need to talk about why people love sports anime in the first place. Now, this is a pretty difficult question since even some of the best sports anime differ so much, but more likely than not, you watch sports anime because you like sports or anime, usually both. It's a pretty rare genre of anime that combines the tension and drama of competition with compelling characters and narratives, and this is where Haikyuu and Blue Lock really shine. But there's also another reason. It's hype. Like, really hype. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend that one of the main draws of sports anime isn't the simple fact that it has the ability to have us on the edges of our seats. But as amazing as these moments are, they wouldn't mean a thing without all the work that goes into setting them up. From Haikyuu's ability to somehow make us care for every single character before giving us a payoff for each of them that leaves us covered in our own cream, to Blue Lock being animated like a PowerPoint but still breaking the internet with each episode.
This shit is getting me hyped again, Carly. I'm getting hyped again. Damn!
Oh, shit! Alright, should we get going? Damn, bro.
Oh my god! I killed him! No! Oh.
This is what sets so many sports anime apart from the other genres. Not only are they incredibly grounded in realism, but they still deliver on that hype. And Inazuma 11 actually does this better than anyone. And you might be wondering how an anime about a football team defending their school against aliens is realistic. I'll show you what I mean by just using one game, Raimon versus Epsilon. This is one of the most popular matches in the show. Everything from the build-up to the final kick had me creaming my pants. And it involves a football match against aliens to determine the fate of the world. Now, I know that doesn't sound realistic, but trust me, it will all make sense in a bit. But we can't talk about why a match that involves a fella using a whole ass drill to stop a meteor is one of the most realistic games in sports anime without talking about the very intentional plot points that come before it. It's a little like how in Haikyuu, you can only really appreciate the true stakes of the second Seijo game after you've seen the team already lose to them, reinvent themselves through 5 more games, and then finally beating Seijo in an incredibly hard-earned victory. And these stakes are what makes sports anime feel so real, and that's what makes them so good. Because in the case of Inazuma 11, if our boys lose to Epsilon, the aliens will deadass flatten entire schools. Don't ask me how they can do that. This is a show that once had a kid summon a devil to stop a nuke, and despite that, it's still one of the most raw and realistic shows ever. And that's the main reason we love sports anime, realism. But not in the way you might think, because this is actually a pretty loaded word that can mean lots of different things. And at first glance, there's nothing realistic about this show. But then you look deeper and it'll have you going, holy shit, that's pretty raw. And that all stems from what even makes an anime realistic in the first place. And the answer to that is lots of things. And if an anime focuses on the wrong thing, you start to lose interest. Think about it this way. We don't give a shit about Ronaldo scoring his 356th goal, but we do care about Real Madrid playing Barcelona because of the intense rivalry between the two clubs, where half the players can barely make it through the game without being red carded. And in the case of sports anime, this is something shows like Haikyuu and Blue Lock are really good at. You see, even in these more grounded sports anime, the story is driven by the protagonist's desire to overcome the antagonist. And that's one of the things that make an anime feel real. Sure, the main point of Blue Lock might be to see Isagi become the best striker in the world, which by the way is absolute bullshit because Rin starts off like twice the player Isagi is, but suddenly because of a few mindset shifts and improved game IQ, Isagi is somehow able to bridge that cataclysmic gap between the pair. Like this kid kicked a ball into the air and then hit it with another ball. Do you understand how insane that is? But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. The point is, the story in Blue Lock isn't driven by Isagi's rank slowly improving, it's driven by the obstacles he has to overcome along the way. Because because that's what makes him feel human. Nagi's Team V, Rin and these two idiots, the challenge of having Barrow as a teammate and eventually facing off against Japan's under-20s. The reason the story is so grounded and real is because of the interactions between these opposing characters, because that's what we see in real life. And it's the same with Haikyuu, which is lauded as being one of the most realistic sports anime, where the most unbelievable thing in the entire show is the freak quick, where Hinata has his damn eyes closed. But beyond that, what makes it so realistic is not just the struggles of the protagonists, but it's how that compares to the struggles of the antagonists. And that's what makes someone like Oikawa such a great character, because beyond being a great foil for Kageyama and Hinata, he's incredibly layered and tormented by his own inadequacies. That's what makes us actually root for the villain. That's what makes them relatable, and that's what makes them realistic. But relatability and realism aren't the same thing.
No shit, Sherlock.
I'm sure a lot of us can relate to not having our passions align with our talents, but I can't imagine what it must feel like to dedicate your entire life to a sport, to polish your craft to a work of art, to have a team that trusts you more than they trust themselves, and despite all of that, seeing yourself fall short to these so-called geniuses, all because you weren't born with the same gifts that they were. That feeling right there, that's what makes sports anime so realistic, because even if what's happening on the screen isn't realistic, the emotions it makes you feel are. But that's not easy to do. Those moments need to feel earned by properly setting up those payoffs. And the way Inazuma 11 does this is better than almost any other sports anime. And it first starts with tearing down the protagonists. You see, I'd argue it's way more interesting to see the protagonists lose than it is to see them win. And this happens a lot in sports anime, with Team Z losing their first game and Karasuno losing to Seijo. But Inazuma 11 does things a little differently. In Haikyuu, Karasuno are able to reinvent and redeem themselves by eventually beating Seijo and cementing their spot in the finals against Shiratorizawa. And Blue Lock does similar. While Team Z don't have another chance to play against Team X, Isugi is still able to get his revenge against Barrow in the 2v2s. And we see the same thing in Inazuma 11. Kind of. You see, before we get to Raimon playing Epsilon, it's important to note that they've already played against the aliens before. And they'll play against even more aliens and a certain other team I can't mention yet. So if you want to see those games, please let me know by subscribing. I'm trying to hit 100,000 subs by the end of the year, which seems kinda impossible, so I really need your help. But it's not as impossible as what you're about to hear, because the score for one of those games was, hang on, that can't be right. Holy shit. Anyway, even though this scoreline isn't particularly realistic, the premise is the same. Since Raimon have already lost to them, it sets up Epsilon as this super strong final boss, just like Haikyuu does with Shiratorizawa and Ushiwaka, to the point the intro literally portrays him as a mountain the team need to climb over. But you can't do that without a great villain, and that's what makes Epsilon so similar to Shiratorizawa, which is both a good and a bad thing. Let me explain. Haikyuu does a pretty great job of making us care about the opponents. I literally love Oikawa more than I love my parents. Like, I would die for this boy. Like, I would happily live in a world without white girls for him. Alright, I wouldn't go that far, but you get the point. In Haikyuu, everyone feels like the main character, and Inazuma 11 is admittedly not great at doing that. Granted, it's a lot more difficult since the show has a far bigger cast, but that isn't really the main problem. As much as I love Shiratorizawa as being this perfect antagonist team, the kind that feels so visceral and real, I'm not going to pretend that I care about all of them. Besides Ushiwaka, the show does a great job of making us feel for some of the other characters, but beyond that, and Epsilon are largely the same, where the only real character you feel for is the goalkeeper and captain, Desarm. But sometimes that's all you need, because Jesus Christ, this man is a menace. Like, he single-handedly gives a kid PTSD to the point he can't even look at a football without getting war flashbacks. And the show does a great job of showing us how strong he is, where he makes our captain, who is genuinely one of the best goalkeepers in the entire show, look like Karius compared to Allison. And it's largely because of him that the match is so damn satisfying, because he alone is responsible for tearing Raimon down before the match even starts. And that's what makes these shows feel so realistic, because before the protagonist is able to overcome their enemy, they first need to be torn down. And that's what separates a good sports anime from a great one. So how are Raimon torn down before they play Epsilon and face Desarm? Well, they lose two of their most important players. And to explain how this happens, I need to ask you, if I say the word aura, who do you think of? And I swear to God, if you say Jinwoo, I will kill you. But for anyone that's watched Inazuma 11, you'll know that this kid is the living embodiment of the word aura. This is Goenji, and pretty much whenever we see him, he's making a late entrance with the most badass music I've ever heard. In fact, in the final episode of season 1, he kicks a whole ass phoenix at Poseidon to score the winning goal against a team of drugged up gods. And I wish any of those words were fake, but that's dead ass what actually happens. And honestly, he's probably the least relatable character on the team. He's easily the best player, and he's sort of always been strong, so we rarely see him struggle. So what about this is realistic? Well, it's clear that Goenji has a deep love for football, but he's forced to give up on it after his sister is almost killed in a car crash to stop him from playing in a middle school football match. Don't question that part. You have no idea how serious football is in this world. The aliens basically tell him that if he doesn't leave Raimon, they'll kill his sister. And if you think that's crazy, you've not even heard the half of it yet. But the point here isn't that the reason Goenji leaves Raimon is unrealistic, because let's face it, it is. What's realistic here is the pain someone must feel to dedicate your entire life to something, to love it more than life itself, only to be forced to give it up because of factors outside your control. That in itself is one of the most real emotions you could have, and it's probably something everyone has experienced. And the show masterfully plays this off in the Epsilon match. But before we get to that, we need to understand how this guy goes through the greatest crash out known to man. Now his name is Fubuki, and he's basically the only one on par with Dezon, so losing him is a big blow to Raimon. But it's the way they lose him that's so crazy. You see, Fubuki faced Dezon before and got absolutely wrecked, which only motivates him to become stronger for when they eventually face each other again. Now this in itself is already pretty realistic, you know, minus all the special moves, because it's pretty natural for an athlete, especially one that's always been the best, to be shaken when they encounter someone far better than them. And different athletes respond in different ways, but in the case of most sports anime, it usually ends up with them having the singular focus of wanting revenge on their opponent. We see this in Haikyuu with how much it means to Karasuno when they finally are able to beat Seijo, and we see it in Blue Lock too, with Isagi first losing to Rin's team before starting again, building up his team and challenging him once more. Granted, he loses again, but I actually give this points for realism, because like I said before, Rin is way better than Isagi. He should never have been able to beat him in the first place. But when it comes to Inazuma 11, things are a little different. You see, Fubuki does beat Dezon, but when he goes to do it again, this dickhead pulls out a giant ass drill and is all like,
"Please, as if you could handle even a fraction of my power."
And yeah, that doesn't end well for Fubuki. So what the hell happened here? Jesus Christ, you are not going to believe this. And to be fair, it's a pretty long story, so I won't bore you with all the details. This dickhead had a twin brother who died in a car crash with the rest of his family, and since then he's been living rent-free in Fubuki's head as a split personality. And you might think this is ridiculous, but it's actually one of the most realistic cases of dissociative identity disorder since Jinx's psychosis in Arcane. Now, I'm no mental health expert, I can barely wrap my head around wiping my own ass, but I did some research and this is all pretty damn accurate. There are genuine examples of this happening in real life, leading to actual changes in mood, posture, and even a person's skills. As for why his eye color and hairstyle changes, that's just more of an artistic thing, so we as a viewer know what's going on. Kinda like the breathing styles in Demon Slayer. So don't go to the comments with your panties in a bunch typing shit like, "This can't be realistic, I just think this so stupid." Honestly, seeing a kid splitting himself to carry what he can't bear is painfully real. But it isn't what's important here. Because after Dezon basically proves to Fubuki that his biggest strength, which is his ability as a striker, is still not enough to beat him, it crushes Fubuki. He thinks he has no value if he's of no use to his team. And if he's of no use to them, then they won't want him. And that terrifies him. And what's more real than that feeling? The idea that you're only useful when you provide value is something that almost everyone has probably felt. But in Fubuki's case, it's even worse because everyone's depending on him. So the only question is, without Goenji in the team and Fubuki being about as stable as my bank balance, are Raimon strong enough to beat Epsilon? And the answer is, Now this match is massive, because if Raimon lose, Epsilon will destroy this lovely place. But if they win, I don't know, I guess the aliens will just leave or something. They didn't really make that part clear. Look, this isn't the part you should be focusing on anyway, because my boy Fubuki is back with a vengeance and is staring down Dezom like he shagged his girl. And I've never seen a man as locked in as this. You just know he's going to cook. And you guys can cook too by hitting that subscribe button. And the match soon gets underway, and I need to quickly take a moment to point out something in the interest of fairness. This scene. As much as I glaze this show, and as much as you guys enjoy me glazing it, I can't in good faith not point out how ridiculous this line is. Sir, you are playing football. How can you possibly complain about your opponent passing the ball? But then again, sometimes I play in defense and get mad when the attacker passes the ball instead of taking me on. So I guess this is kind of weirdly realistic too. And this leads to Epsilon using their most powerful move, the Gaia break. And this dickhead stops it with a giant energy fist that he learned through his dead granddad's notebook while surfing. Man, I'm really not doing a good job of making this anime sound realistic. But holy shit, seeing everyone in awe of Endo with their jaws on the floor has got to be one of the most satisfying moments in the show. And seeing Endo having become so much stronger motivates the entire team to show off their skills too. And they put up a great fight against Epsilon. Unfortunately, without Fubuki at his best, it's pretty obvious they have little chance of ever scoring against Desarm. This is basically like taking Kageyama out of Karasuno. Sure, they might have Nishinoya and Tsukishima, but they would be straight ass. And Desarm, the sassy little slut he is, literally kicks the ball at Fubuki and gives him a free shot on goal. Like, come on, Fate used to be believable. There's no way he'd fall for that. Now this scene pissed me off at first, but it honestly ends up being one of the sweeter moments in the show because Raimon recognized that what Fubuki is doing is probably not the best for him, but the only one that can make that decision is him. And so as his friends, they're going to support him no matter what. And Fubuki repays that support with his most powerful Eternal Blizzard. And it comes so close to breaking through Desarm's Drill Smasher, but just falls short, leaving the score at 0-0. But Fubuki tries again and again, never giving up but getting stopped each time until... Let me tell you, when I first saw this happen, I dropped to my knees with my head in my hands, knowing that it has never been more over. This man just stopped Raimon's most powerful player without even using a special move. And that hits Fubuki like a gunshot to the head. He antagonized Fubuki so bad over the course of 3 whole matches that the kid deadass needs to be walked off the pitch. Can you even fathom the insanity here? This is what would happen to me if I found out there were no more white girls in the world. Like, what would I even have to live for at that point? And of course, as always, the person to come on is Megane. This is like substituting Messi for Anthony. Like, I don't care if Messi only has 1 leg, we cannot allow this menace on the pitch. And without Fubuki, Epsilon begin to run one of the nastiest fades in anime history as Raimon can barely stay on their feet. Luckily, Endo's still able to keep them in the game, but it still doesn't change the fact that Raimon can't score. They even summon a whole ass phoenix and a butterfly, and Desarm still spends the entire match with his arms crossed. Okay, when I say that out loud, it really makes me rethink the whole realism claim. But then again, the actual football is never what made Inazuma 11 so realistic. What sets it apart from any other sports anime is how utterly perfect it expresses emotion. And I don't just mean the emotions of the characters, but I mean evoking our own emotions as we watch. And to show you what I mean, we're gonna fast forward to Desarm being so bored with playing in goal that he decides to become a striker.
Wait, what?
I know we're supposed to hate this guy, but that's gotta be the top 10 coldest moments in sports anime. And the worst part of it all is that he's really good. Can you imagine if you're minding your own business, doing your shit, and some dickhead came up behind you and made this face? And then he proceeds to literally teleport into space before firing off his special move. Luckily, Endo's the best player on the team, and his Fists of Justice should be more than strong enough to...
Okay, we are cooked.
And it turns out we actually are, because Desarm absolutely dismantles Raimon, forcing the entire team to defend the goal together. And after he's got everyone on their knees, bro just stands there aura farming. I really want to hate this guy, but is there anyone else with this kind of aura? Is there anyone else with this kind of aura? Well, alright then, plan B it is.
Endo, I think I know how you can stop Desarm.
You do? You do? Then why the fuck didn't you tell me that 20 minutes ago?
Just listen to me. Have you tried punching it harder?
Get the fuck out of my face before I... Oh wait, it worked.
But unfortunately, even though Endo's figured out a way to stop Desarm, they're already a goal down, and without Fubuki, there's nobody on the team strong enough to score. I think this scene would have single-handedly been responsible for millions of male erections worldwide because my boy is finally back. And you know what? For once, I'm not even gonna be the one to say it.
He said it! He said it!
But I suppose you're wondering how Goenji's back, and honestly, just shut the hell up. Like, we really don't need to question the logic here. Just enjoy how it takes all but 13 seconds for him to steal the ball back and effortlessly equalize. But this is just the start line, because now Desarm has returned in goal, and what happens next is genuinely why I consider this to be one of the most realistic sports anime around. That's right, after 52 whole ass episodes, we finally get to see this kid use a new move. But is it enough to break through Drill Smasher? Yes it is. In fact, Goenji doesn't even wait to see himself score, and it ends up giving us one of the most iconic scenes in all of Inazuma 11 as Raimon finally beat Epsilon.
新しい必殺技爆裂ストームとともに炎のストライカーゴエンジシュヤ
And this right here, this tiny bit of animation is what I absolutely adore about this anime, and it gave me a more real and raw feeling than so many other sports anime I've watched. Because at the end of the day, a fantastical show about superpowered football can't compete in terms of realism against a show as grounded as Haikyuu. But to me, a show being grounded isn't what makes it realistic. After all, one of the most realistic anime I've ever had the pleasure of watching is Your Name, or Kimi no Na wa, and that movie features two people swapping bodies through space and time, and yet I've never felt such a connection to a pair of characters as I did with Taki and Mitsuha. Their relationship felt so real and raw, and the movie got me feeling things I've never felt before. It made me feel nostalgic for a life I haven't even lived. Did you know there was a word for that? And it did all of this while still incorporating some of the most fantastical elements imaginable. The scene of Taki finally meeting Mitsuha at Kataware Doki will forever be the greatest scene I've ever had the pleasure of watching in not just anime, but all of media. And when Mitsuha falls and opens up her hand to see what Taki had written there, I was so close to bawling my eyes out. Of course, there's only one anime that's actually made me cry, but that's a video I'm probably not ever going to be ready to make. But the point is, Inazuma 11 is no different. It incorporates fantastical elements to deliver very raw and realistic messages. It makes you feel things many other sports anime can never hope to. And there's no better example than this shot of Goenji, where he has the most subtle of twinkles in his eye. For most characters in the show, you wouldn't even think twice about seeing something like this. But Goenji's never reacted this way, so it really shows how much it means to him to have finally been able to return to the sport he loves. The sport that helped him make so many amazing friends. Friends that supported him every step of the way, and a captain that believed in him more than he believed in himself. And what's more real than that? And that's exactly why I think Inazuma 11, despite the absolute ridiculous things that happen in it, is one of the most realistic sports anime you can watch. So if you want to see more Inazuma 11 content, click the video on the left for my most watched Inazuma 11 video. Thanks for watching.